Welcome to How to Stay Married so far. And before we go any further, for those of you that are listening to this podcast and not watching us on YouTube, I'm now walking over to Mark and I'm giving him a public display of affection.
Oh,
now, was that too much? Does that offend anyone? Is that unpleasant?
Get your hand off that. That would be too much. Public displays of affection.
Yeah.
PDAs.
PDA, I think it is always. Whenever we discuss this as a group of women, it always gets everybody fired up.
Does it?
Yeah.
I always think of PDFs, which are documents.
Oh, God. Hence the trouble we're in.
Hence the trouble. PDA. What does it mean? Public display of affection.
Well, it's a broad spectrum, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you understand by it?
Well, it depends where we're talking about. Well, what I understand as it to be in my life is that I am comfortable enough, I feel loved enough, I love enough that I would be affectionate in front of people without any worry about
Affectionate with your partner.
But for me, the line is anything that is intimate.
Ooh.
So any kind of
Liquid.
kissing, snogging,
Anything that makes
rubbing
noises like this.
Rubbing the inside of a leg, holding a bum,
Right.
putting a hand down the jeans.
Hang on a minute. So all of these are inappropriate.
Yes.
Really?
Depending on age, because I think there is something quite mutton. I think it can get quite mutton.
Oh, there's definitely... Well, we'll get into all those, I think, details. I mean, my first experiences of PDA in anyone in my family were... Well, I saw public displays of sexual intercourse from too young an age. So I think that probably traumatised me in such a way that I probably struggled to understand what public displays of affection was or what affection was. The first time I remember seeing affection in a manner that I thought was gentle and loving and sweet was when I can literally remember the one time my nan and granddad hugged each other. Now, hugging is presumably at the very lower end of public displays of affection. We all hug each other. We hug strangers.
No, I don't think we do. And certainly not all couples hug each other.
No?
Would never do it.
No, but
we
hug. You see a lot of hugging. I suppose what I'm trying to say is you go to any train station in the land, you're going to see an awful lot of hugging. Whether it be a friend, a brother, a parent, or whatever, there's people hugging. And so for me...
Yeah, because you can hug in a non-sexual relationship.
So I had the two opposite ends of the spectrum. I had hardcore porn on one side, and I had really sweet, one sweet showing of affection between my grandparents. And I remember being so ecstatic when I saw it. I remember my nan being so blown away by it. You know, it was so unusual for my granddad to do it. And I think probably therein is a whole subject which we'll talk about do men do it more, do women want it more, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my memories are, so my mum, I think, didn't get any affection at all when she was a child. So though we were very loved and very, very well cared for, there was no affection, no like hugs or kisses or anything like that. But my dad, being, you know, Middle Eastern and very sort of, what's the word? He's very sort of bon ami, isn't he?
Yeah.
Like big, I grew up with people would come round and my dad would stand with his arms wide open and would hug and kiss and pat people's backs and he was affectionate with me in a really nice way, and they were affectionate with each other, but never in the slightest bit sexual, not at all, but it was kind and sweet. And my dad would be affectionate with my mum, but it always looked like my dad moved first to it.
Right.
But my mum was pleased he had. That was the kind of feeling that I got. And it always made me feel nice as a kid. I think if you see your parents affectionate, as long as it isn't sexual in any way, I think for most kids that's a reassuring, safe place to be.
But I can think of many occasions where we never are sexual in our sort of public displays. They're not public, they're in the house. But the girls would just
They've
go,
always
"Ugh,"
hated
they've always
it.
hated any
Not
kind of...
now.
Right, yeah, no,
When
that's
they
true.
went through an age where it was like,
Ooh.
and they used to go, oh, please don't. And we would literally just be hugging. We
Yeah.
never kiss or anything in front of them. And we'd say, what would you prefer, this or us arguing? They went, oh, arguing.
Yeah, it was bizarre, wasn't it? Yeah. I mean, it was really...
It's probably at a point
discomforted
that
them.
they realised what sex was.
Right.
And so
There's nothing worse than thinking your
that
parents.
we'd had sex and that's how they'd come about was probably too horrific for them to imagine.
Yeah.
So we actually desexualized ourselves completely. I could tell that there were a few years
Yeah.
where it would have been the worst thing we possibly could have said
Yeah.
was to have admitted that we ever had sex, ever thought of it, or were ever likely to ever have it again.
Yeah.
And so I was like so strict about it, wasn't I? We don't mention it, we don't. And then I cracked that nut open a bit with Maddie and talked about sex goes on for the whole of your life and all of that, and I broke through that. But I suppose it comes with the maturity, and they realise probably now that affection... I mean, not everyone has to be affectionate to have a good relationship. No way at all. Some people, both sides of a couple don't like it. But for me, it couldn't work not having any.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I mean, I think if we were to kind of, partition ourselves into categories of who demonstrates or partakes or initiates public displays of affection more than the other one, it's a pretty safe bet that we would say you now. But I do remember there being a point in the past where I really liked not snogging, not sort of being inappropriate or hands wandering or anything like that, but like you sitting on my lap or us, holding each other together at a table when other
I
people
love
were there.
that.
No, I know, but
Well, I
there
tried
were...
to sit really next to you, near to you the other day in a restaurant. You went, don't, you'll make me hot.
Now, hang on a minute. I'd sat down, I had 3 layers on, I was already perspiring. Part of that is a really kind gesture that you're going to end up with a wet, sticky bit on your forehead.
Mark, please don't
Well,
be
exactly.
disgusting.
Exactly. So I was doing you a favour. Once I'd cooled down, I moved closer to you and we hugged. Now, I do feel awkward about hugging in restaurants. I do feel you're very sweet. You often say, "Come and sit next to me" in a coquettish fashion.
Yeah, it's totally wasted on you.
Well, it is, because
there's lots of other people that would go, oh, yes, please.
Well, all right, but I mean,
Well, you should think about that.
but I feel a degree of responsibility to other people in the restaurant that we shouldn't be kind of cozying up in a corner.
I would never snog you.
That's not true.
Why can't you cozy up in a corner?
We have cozied up in a corner, and your hand has incidentally landed on my crutch. This is a fact.
Right, now this is...
And then I get really embarrassed.
I'm going to stop this podcast
Then I get
you're
really...
being a dick.
No, I'm not being a dick. But listen, there were times in the past, and I think this is an important detail. I'm not going to say who. There were certain people that we were around who weren't in couples.
Yes.
And so I got really frustrated, I remember, for a period of our lives where we just couldn't show any affection in a public sphere because of these people that we knew, because we didn't want to appear
and I think
insensitive.
that's a really nice thing to do. It's like if I have a single friend around, there is no way I would do cuddling in front of them of any kind.
No, I'm not talking about cuddling.
Because you never know what sort of... I think it's excluding, and I think it's unfair, and you never know what that person might be going through, what loneliness they might be feeling. So that's quite interesting you brought that up, because that is actually quite a strict rule that I do have in place.
Yeah, you do. But so
anyone.
On that point, given that our lives have been incredibly surrounded by people, there was big swathes of time back there where essentially, through no fault of our own, we were rarely on our own, and so consequently there was very little public displays of affection. I recognised it was out of respect to someone else, but at the same time I backed away from it somewhat.
But
and I don't think I've
Mark,
ever...
you weren't affectionate right from the beginning, and because I remember this very clearly, because I remember
I
the things
disagree with
that
this.
go deep into my heart, and you said, and I used to hate this so much, you used to say it to me all the time, when I used to say, you're not very affectionate, and you'd go, and you'd always say to me, well, I've always been affectionate in all my other relationships, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but this was a matter of perspective. I was
No,
being
but I was
exactly
like-
as affectionate as I was in any
like-
other. No.
Oh
What
my
I
God,
was saying...
no, how I read that
Yeah,
was,
but
though,
you
that
read
you were
it.
affectionate with somebody else and
No,
you couldn't be
that's not what I was
affectionate
saying.
with me.
What I was saying was I was identically affectionate, but other women or other partners found that sufficient and
Isn't
fine.
it funny then? This is so interesting, the way that we hear things.
Yeah, I mean, that
because
is
the way
the reality.
that I heard that was, I was affectionate, but I'm not affectionate with you.
Not at all. Why
Well,
would I be? Why would
I
I
went
be?
years thinking that.
Why? Well, hopefully I've kind of illuminated you
It's
as
a
to
bit of
what.
a shame.
What do
I'm
you
only
mean?
finding out now.
Well, maybe we could move on to pastures green. Maybe you can
Well,
remove
you
that
wouldn't-
resentment.
Mark.
Well, I don't get your hand off my knee. I don't understand. I don't understand what I've done wrong. I know you've said that before, and
There's nothing you've done wrong.
No,
it's
no,
just who
no.
you
But
are.
it has troubled me because when you've said it, I've often gone back and I thought, there's no way on earth I would have been less affectionate with Nadia than before. I know for a fact that what was sufficient or adequate in those relationships or appropriate, I was bringing to this. It just might mean that you wanted more. So,
Right, okay.
which leads me to wonder, have you always...
Well, no, tell me about those other relationships then. How
Well, they're
affectionate
about the same.
were you?
About the same amount. Apart from first girlfriends, where it was. I mean, I remember just snogging for hours at Chiswick Tube Station, Ravenscourt Park Tube Station, and the bus station on the Goldhawk Road for the number 52.
So that's public displays of
Oh
affection.
my God, it
but
was
just
so
general
public.
affection. Because
Eating each other.
It's because how you are. Because I think people that just do it when they're out, I think that's strange. So why I'm asking you just generally about affection is like, how does that, why do people then either accelerate it in front of people or decrease it in front of people? What is it about the public?
Well, I think some
displays of
people...
affection?
Well, I think there were a couple of practical reasons. I think the reason me and my girlfriend were doing that was we had nowhere we could go where there wasn't adults.
Yeah.
So I think, spare a thought for lots of teenagers when you do see them in the park having a bit of a full-on snog.
Oh, I love it. Go
Yeah,
for
yeah,
it.
no, but I mean, yes, it can be inappropriate. Yes, it might be too much to look at or pass, and maybe they
But
can
we
find somewhere
allow
pro-
it with young
Well, you allow it, but also there's a reason. It's a practical reason. There was nowhere to go. I think some other people find it a frisson. I think there's a sliding scale where you end up at dogging and you start at a bus stop. No, but you do. Some.
Why have you suddenly brought dogging?
Well, no,
into
because
this?
I'm talking about the sliding scale of public exposure and getting a thrill from it.
No, we are not going that far down the spectrum.
No, but what I'm
We are
saying is
talking
you
about
could
within
logically,
a
I
relationship.
take everything to logical ends. You could end up at that point. But partly I feel so uncomfortable when, I don't know if you remember, there was a time we were walking through Trafalgar Square and there was a couple kissing. His hand was right up her bottom. He was eating her face. It was a totally equivalent situation. It wasn't like he was overpowering her. They were at it in such a big way.
I
It
think they were
made
on
me
drugs.
angry.
But I think
angry.
that goes beyond public displays of affection. It goes on to public displays of sexual activity.
Right.
And for me, there is a line like, yes, a kiss on the lips, briefly, is fine. But even then, I'm not too happy about it in front of people. Like, if we were sat here now having a lunch party or something and you leaned across and kissed me on my lips, that I think would be just awful. Because you're excluding the other people. That's intimacy. I think, for me, often when we're out of the house, we're just... Because it's only recently that our daughter went back to school. We've had kids at home all our marriage. So often I think when we go out and I say, oh, sit near me, oh, cuddle up to me. It's because when we're at home, we're sat in a family situation. The focus is on the kids. On the sofa, we're watching telly. We haven't got a sofa that both of us can sit on comfortably. It's quite difficult to have affection. And for years, the girls would go, no. So it's quite, you have to work at having affection. So when
We
you
have
go
no
out
curtains.
and you feel the freedom of being watched by those closest to you. I think that's the frisson. That's what's,
But do you
it's
not
the
think-
moment to have it without being watched, I think.
But I think, in some instances, public displays of affection are about control or are quite sort of proprietorial. They're sort of
Or
saying...
about showing off to other people.
Or showing
I'm
off,
in
but
love,
I think
I'm
for
loved.
men, it can often be a case of look at me. This is my thing. This is what I own. This is my possession. And there's a sort of flaunting of that. It's a bit like a sort of, I don't know, a lion with a lioness sort of showing off to the rest of the pride that he's in control. I mean,
If you look at that in the sort of the worst end of the scale, I think there is another end of the scale where if you're in an equal relationship, there is something quite nice about, and I think if we're all honest, there's a little bit of that going on in our heads subconsciously, where you go, I am with this person loves me, I love them. And I think that's what makes it very hard for single, I mean, there's plenty of single people that are perfectly happy to be single. There's a lot of people that aren't. And I think that would be really painful, seeing, you know, if I was sat opposite somebody in a restaurant that is just constantly like cuddling and...
Well, we're going to get on to different environments, because I think there are different rules and levels of what's allowed in different environments. I just wanted to go back to this thought, though. I mean, you know, there's always that idea, it's a very romantic idea, that unless other people see your relationship doesn't really exist. And I sometimes wonder whether that creeps into it, that people are on a subconscious level, aren't necessarily just wanting to show off or whatever, but they're wanting to show to the world that they're a couple.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Not show off, but to show to the world.
Yeah.
Because it's a status symbol.
Yeah.
It's that, I think that's wrong, but it is seen as a status symbol.
Yeah, it's the ultimate aspiration.
You know, the ultimate, which is so wrong, because there's so many people that are happy being single.
Well, the obvious
I think, and any women here that might agree with this, or any men, not just women, I think for a lot of people, they always feel that affection leads to sex. And I shouldn't say that's just women, because there are some men that are in relationships with women that are more sexual than they are. And so they might want that affection. Immediately, I can think of 5 women I know that would say this. But they will never show affection because their husband, their partner, their wife will always think that that means sex.
Yeah.
And so when they're out, they can be affectionate, because that doesn't mean that they're then going to be 5 minutes later at it.
But could it be that 6 hours later the partner might expect it because they've been affectionate?
No, well, I don't think expect it, but I think anyone that thinks that affection is not a very, very important part of a good sex life, then they are never going to have a good sex life.
No, I agree.
Because you could be affectionate on a Monday in a way that is really touching and heartwarming and all of that, and then everyone might get lucky on a Wednesday, because it's about, I've said this lots of times before, it's about cherishing, it's about feeling that your partner sees you as a separate entity from the kids,
it's
from
the
job,
tapestry of love.
Exactly, it's the tapestry of love. And why so many people have such a bad sex life is because that gets left by the wayside.
They think the sex just happens on the day, a standing start.
And I think sometimes I do think, you know, maybe we're a bit unfair with people saying, oh God, you know, God, he only gives me affection when he wants sex. But you can get such a chasm between you, can't you? That when there is that bit of affection, it's like everyone can misread each other and go, oh my God, this must mean sex. Great, I've been dying for it. Oh no, God, the last thing I wanted was to have sex.
But so many public displays of affection that aren't appropriate are crossing that sort of very tricky line between affection and sex. And I think that's the problem. I think therein lies the problem. And I think men, when they're affectionate, I mean, you know, the classic scenarios where you're in the back row of a cinema, or in my instance, you're at a bus stop and you're kind of, you know, you're both kind of pushing against each other and all that kind of stuff. You know, there is a sexual frisson to public displays of affection. So, but from what you're saying, I'm sensing that you're sort of kind of indicating that there's the difference of affection across the daytime.
I think it can breathe. If you're affectionate outside, you can allow it to breathe. I remember when another thing that really used to annoy me when we were first together, and oh my God, I'm going to really embarrass you if I say this. Are you right with me saying it?
Well, I mean, you say so much. Go for it.
Yeah, you know, obviously we had a good, you know, as you do when you're first together, good sex life and everything. And you used to do this thing that used to really, it was a really damaging thing in our intimacy. Like, you'd be driving or something, you're doing something, I'd put my hand on your thigh, or I'd do something, you'd go, oh my God, this is typical when we can't have sex, or something like that. And I'd think, and I cannot tell you how much I used to hate you when you used to say that. Because I think
my God.
You know nothing about anything if you can say that.
Oh my God.
But you were much younger than me.
Well, I was much younger, but also I'm trying to think back.
But what a thing to say.
Yeah, but I
and
don't...
you always used to quote one of your exes that used to do the same thing, and I won't say their name. So-and-so used to do that. The only reason she would touch me is when we weren't at home, we couldn't have sex. Do you remember that?
Oh my God, I can't believe I said that.
I know, you're right, idiot.
God, thank God
But you said so many things that damaged our sex life that you
All
had no
right.
idea.
Bloody hell.
And you would, and it's, but no, but why I'm saying
Sorry,
this is, it was never with bad intention.
No, it wasn't.
It was just with a lack of understanding of the
Right.
opposite sex. So the reason I'm saying this, and I would have said
What's
things
it called
to
when
you.
you're rejuvenated? Not rejuvenated. What is it? Renaissance. Hopefully, I've kind of rectified.
Well, yeah, because I've trained you.
Oh my God. This is ridiculous.
No, because there will have been things as well that it's just the language of love. You have to find out what the language
Well, I suppose
is.
yeah,
because
absolutely.
different people have different
Yeah,
languages.
yeah.
So
And different rhythms.
yes.
I mean, but, different rhythms. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Not to go too much into sex, because sex is a different conversation, but you can't talk, for me, I can't talk about affection without talking about, why we are so fucked up about it in this country is because we are so many of us here are like tight-assed about sex and tight-assed about nudity and it's all wrapped into one thing, isn't it?
What about in a restaurant? I find it, going back to you wanting me to sidle up alongside you, I find it unforgivable when I see people making out in restaurants. I've come here to eat my food.
I'm not talking about making out, I'm talking about affection. I'm talking about,
Holding
I quite
a hand
like
is
it.
nice.
Like, I suppose I quite like it when somebody wants me to be next to them.
Right.
Like if somebody says sit close to me, I think that's really lovely and I think that's sexy and I think
Right.
and yet nobody would think that was being sexy. But you always go like this.
Oh, right.
It's always quite embarrassing.
Shit. So you might find someone else to sit next to you.
Well, I did say, when I say to you, come and sit next to me and you go, no, I'm too hot. There are other people that would say, what a lovely idea. Yes,
Like who? Oh my God, I'm suddenly being
what
traded out.
What I'm saying is, I'm a really nice, attractive option. If
I
I
know
say to
that.
you, come and sit close to me,
Yeah.
then when you say no, that is a
I was
rejection.
hot.
No, I know.
I mean,
but
I
I'm
was
trying-
hot.
I'm trying to illustrate the differences between the language of love between women that I know, not all women, and men. And those sorts of things that many women would say that a man would go, oh no, you're all right. They don't get it. They don't get that is actually... That's so many pinballs on the pinball machine. You've got no idea. I would have preferred it if you'd said it to me, but you're not going to, so I say it to you, and then you say no.
So have you always been the person who's been more publicly
No.
affectionate?
No.
No. Oh, right.
Your face.
Well, that's a surprise.
Oh my God, look at him.
Oh, I'm surprised.
People are affectionate with me. I'm quite a nice prospect to cuddle and be nice with.
Yeah, but I'm not suggesting people weren't affectionate with you. I was asking, aren't you affectionate with them? Because you
What do you
want to be
mean?
more... Or did you never...
You said to me, I think what you said is, in past relationships, have you always been the most affectionate?
Yes.
No, I've known people that are even more
Affectionate
than
than
me.
you. Bloody hell.
Exactly.
I mean, you're constant. You would like constant sat next to-ness, wouldn't you?
Well, what can I say? I like affection. If it's taken you 18 years of fucking marriage with me telling you...
Punch over. I've clearly been making a huge mistake
Oh
here.
my God, I love this podcast. We get to sort out...
Oh my Christ.
Yeah.
What's happened? What's gone wrong? So
I
why
think
are your
do you know
arms
why?
crossed?
Do you know why I think it is? And I'm going to be really honest. Do you want me to be honest?
Oh, flipping heck. Whenever you ask that, whatever my answer is, you're honest. It's a pointless, defunct question.
Do you want me to be honest?
No, but you will be.
Well, I don't have to be.
Oh, fucking hell. And then I spend the rest of my day in utter torture wondering what it is.
No, I don't think it's not unpleasant, but you might not like them to hear it.
It's not unpleasant. What the hell is this? I mean, when you say it's not unpleasant, it's close to unpleasant.
No, it's not.
It has to be, otherwise you wouldn't be using the caveat.
No, I don't mean it's nothing horrible.
But I wouldn't like people to know about it.
Yeah.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Now,
But
everyone is
the only
screaming.
place that you can hear this is here, because I won't tell you once we turn the camera off.
What do you mean? How can you not tell me if you've told me once? This is ridiculous. For those listening, we're now in the same shot and I'm sat next to her with my arm around her. But she's got her arms crossed and she's pulling away.
Only because I can see you. Oh, you're too close.
That's
I
not
can't
true.
see you that close without my reading glasses.
Oh my God. And I can't sit close to you when I'm hot. So you're pulling away.
No.
Okay, this is what Nadia
You're
does.
not in the light.
When I'm in public displays of affection, she goes,
You're not in the light. People can't see your face.
They can see my face.
Yeah.
Oh, go on then.
So I think that rather like when I'm flirtatious with you, so because it became very, very difficult for me to flirt with you quite early on in our relationship, because it intimidated you and you thought it would make you feel a certain way when I would flirt with you, and then you'd think, God, you make other people feel like this when you flirt with them.
Right.
And so I would see you just go like this, and you'd be like white knuckling, trying to hang on to the fear.
Okay.
And I think sometimes you're intimidated by me. He's going back to his seat now.
Is that the shot you've had? You're right out of the shot.
No, I'm in the shot. So I think sometimes you're a bit intimidated by my bigness.
I think I've always been intimidated by. I've always allowed myself to and it's a fault of mine. It's what made my jealousy awful. I've always allowed myself to think, if this person can be like this with me, it means nothing because they've been like this with someone else.
So horrible.
Well, it's horrible, but also, even as I say it kind of logically, I think, well, no, there's some truth in it. But the truth in it is, but the truth, let me finish. But the truth in it is that we've all been in love before. We've all had affectionate relationships, and we've all, but I came at it from a very immature place. And I hear what you're saying. And it's not that I'm intimidated now. It's just that I'm often hot. or when you know that your partner can't stand the fact that you're a little bit unshaven, I do often pull away, or I'm slightly kind of like that, because I'm thinking this will be nicer for her. It's not,
that's
and
what I
that's
mean.
an honest description of why I sometimes
You're
insecure
insecure about your looks, which you shouldn't be, because everyone.
Well, it
thinks you're
doesn't
gorgeous.
help, with all due respect, that when you're looking at me, so I'm looking at, Nadia's looking at me, and she goes like that.
No,
at my mouth, and it's just like, what are you
But the
looking
other
at?
thing is, when like if I dressed up and I looked nice, I would immediately see you go, oh God, do I look nice enough?
Well, I would say that was far more often the case. Whereas now I see you look nice, and I think, great, she looks lovely. I really do. I mean, I have worked really hard on all of that stuff and all of I've said it before. Go and check out our jealousy chat. It's all been based on fear. It's all been based on seeing, unfortunately, really manipulative and predatory behaviour around sex and affection, and seeing that from an early age has made it really difficult to trust. And also because I know I was untrustworthy, and I'd learnt those ways, and I kind of I partook in that sort of attitude. It doubles down on the idea that I had to really fight against that. This is the way people relate. This is the way affection works. If it's like this with one person, there's no such thing as monogamy. I didn't see monogamy. It was a constant sort of plurality of people all the time. And I was like, and
very confusing.
That was confusing.
And that's why I don't underestimate the fact that I've come from parents that loved each other, trusted each other, looked after each other, and everything that I saw was decent and kind and loving. So of course I'm not going to have the jealousy that you've got. Of course I'm not going to have the insecurity that you've had. And you have been incredible on the way that you've. I never thought you were going to be able to get to the place that you've got to. And though we've joked and laughed and stuff here, and it is all really funny, it's because we're through the other side. So what I would say...
Well, not really. Unless I sit next to you, I'm fucked.
No, but there's always work to do, isn't there? But to people that are listening to this or watching this, do you see how complex it is? It's not just about, will they hold your hand or they won't?
No.
It goes deep into the roots of who we were and what we saw as children, and then feeds right the way through, and how we felt rejected or how we felt cherished, it's just a massive subject.
Patterns
Are
of
you
behaviour.
all right to hold somebody's hand in public?
Yeah.
That sounds like a simple question, but it's not a simple question.
It
because
certainly isn't.
So many of people can get quite aggressive about it. And it is, in my experience, it's more men than women. So, I don't want to do any of that. Well, where does that come from? That masculine toxicity, where it's like, what does that make me look like? Who does that? And has that poor man that's not enjoying affection ever seen it? Did he see his father have affection?
No, absolutely, I agree.
So it's. I think working this stuff out is more work towards masculine toxicity as well, because it's seen as a weakness and it's a superpower, because you can supercharge your love and your connection and your family if you are able to be affectionate.
But
lots of people start having sex at a very young age, and this is fact, because they are desperate for human touch.
Yeah. No,
because
I
they
that.
get to a certain age and people stop cuddling them and stop kissing them and stop. That's why I was making kissing my kid's face. Maddie's 20. I put my lips right into her face. I kiss her, because that need for touch is so important.
And I think you're right, and I think that's where the contortion of sex and affection, and it becomes quite complicated. But I have to say, I have to pull you up on one thing. Whenever I have ever held your hand has become such a damp fish of a hand. You don't hold hands back. It's a very unsatisfying thing to do.
You were the only person that ever said this to me, and the girl said it. So I thought, oh, this must be true. I never thought that I didn't hold hands tight enough. No, but I really think about it now.
I held your hand in the park the other day, and you went...
No, I had a glove on, but I was thinking, oh my God, he's going to think my hand is not tight enough. I was actually...
Not tight
and
enough,
then
it
I was holding your hand
even
tight,
there.
And then I was like, oh my God, this is knackered.
You may as well have put a sock in my hand.
But I'm more of a hold the hand like this.
No, you're not. You're more of a pull me down onto the floor and lean and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, put it this way. I do hold her hand, and it's just the most unsatisfying experience ever. So there we go. Public shows of displays of affection. I have to sit next to you more. I need to touch you more. I need to just generally be...
You very, very rarely would choose to sit next to me.
Because I like to see your face. There are so many reasons for this. And I'm hot. I'm hot now. I moved from next to you because I'm hot. Anyway. Well, there you go, guys. If you enjoyed that, subscribe. If you're on podcast, leave a comment, hit the stars, do whatever it is you can to say, hey, that was good.
That were right good.
That were right good.